This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Bipartisan calls for legislation aimed at forcing all the Jeffrey Epstein files to be made public. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
A Montreal father has been charged with murder after his 9-year-old daughter was found dead in an upstate New York pond. I'm Sue Aller.
A former Kentucky police officer has been sentenced for using excessive force during the deadly Breonna Taylor raid. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Trump administration releases documents tied to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, the S&P 500 index opens above 6,300 this morning for the first time. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A pivotal hearing in Harvard's standoff with President Trump has ended. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Democrats and some Republican lawmakers are calling for legislation that would compel the Trump administration's Justice Department to release all of the files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. John Stolnis reports from Washington that this comes as Speaker Mike Johnson ruled out an Epstein vote in the House.
Over the weekend, the White House asked the DOJ to release all pertinent grand jury testimony regarding the disgraced financier's legal case. But some Republicans in Congress want to see all the details related to Epstein released. Republican Senator Josh Hawley.
I'm a big believer in transparency, and I think also just for us as a country, it's an important way to get closure. This is a bad guy, and what he did was bad. And it was also pretty extensive. It involved a lot of people.
There are enough House Republicans who say they want to bring legislation to the floor that would compel the Trump administration to release more than just grand jury testimony. Some lawmakers, like Republican Congressman Tim Burchett, believes it's a moral issue.
Ultimately, I don't answer to the president or the voters. I'm going to answer to my maker.
Despite these calls from Democrats and members of his own party, House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters Monday there will be no votes on anything further related to the Jeffrey Epstein files in the House before they break for their 6-week summer recess on Friday.
My belief is we need the administration to have the space to do what it is doing, and if further congressional action is necessary or appropriate, then we'll look at that. But I don't think we're at that point right now because we agree with the president.
So no vote on this resolution?
No.
Republican Congressman Warren Davidson tells CNN he wants the Attorney General to testify before a hearing on the matter.
I really would like the Committee of Jurisdiction to bring her in and say, hey, you start this off, you've got binders, please explain. We are led to believe there are going to be some prosecutions. If we're going to prosecute, we assume there's going to be convictions. And I think that's really the disconnect.
President Trump has blamed Democrats for stoking the Epstein story and has said the so-called Epstein files were made up by former Presidents Obama and Biden and former FBI Director James Comey. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says blaming Democrats for any of this is ludicrous.
Why do we think President Joe Biden or President Barack Obama's names are being invoked? Because Donald Trump is running scared, and the Trump administration is running scared. What are they hiding from the American people?
John Stolnis, Washington.
The father of a 9-year-old girl who called police saying his daughter was abducted in upstate New York now faces murder charges in the child's death. Sue Aller reports on what led police to accuse the girl's father of doing the unthinkable, taking the life of his own child.
It was homicide. That's what authorities are saying about the death of 9-year-old Melina Fertolin from Montreal, Canada. And now her own father, 45-year-old Luciano Fertolin, has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder and concealment of a corpse. He pleaded not guilty on Monday at his arraignment. Authorities say Fertolin called 911 Saturday night reporting that his daughter had been abducted from a parking lot.
The 9-year-old daughter was possibly abducted in a white van, went south on the interstate.
An Amber Alert was quickly issued, but New York State Police Captain Robert McConnell says there were inconsistencies in his story.
During a subsequent interview, he then reports 2 unknown males forced her into a white van. That lead was thoroughly investigated and disproven.
Surveillance footage showed Melina was safe and speaking with her mother about an hour after the reported abduction. Police now believe Fertolin killed his daughter after that phone call and before he made the emergency call. McConnell says Fratolin had no prior arrests.
Mother and Mr. Fratolin have been estranged since 2019. The child resided full-time with her mother.
Melina was found dead in a shallow wooded pond near Ticonderoga, New York on Sunday. An autopsy is underway. In New York, I'm Sue Aller.
When we return on America in the Morning, previously withheld files released in the case of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Extreme heat and humidity today will lead to dangerous conditions. Let's find out where. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Places from the plains to the southeast coastline will have a round of impressive heat to contend with today, but the very worst of the heat and areas of high humidity will be centered on a zone from eastern Texas to southeastern Missouri, central and southern Georgia, and right to the central Gulf Coast. In this large area covering parts of 11 states, AccuWeather real field temperatures are expected to soar into the 110 to 115 degree range this afternoon, leading to a rather dangerous Tuesday to come. Through the rest of this week, the heat will eventually shift to the north and east, reaching New England by Friday. Speaking of New England and the Northeast in general, today looks like a wonderful day, one of the best of the summer in a number of places, as the zone of high pressure passes overhead, promoting sunshine within a rather dry air mass for late July. Many will have a comfortably cool day as well, with widespread 70s and lower 80s for high temperatures. Those pleasant conditions extend into parts of the Great Lakes as well, but from the upper Midwest into central Montana, an approaching cold front will be able to spark some thunderstorms this afternoon and tonight that may turn severe, with strong wind gusts, hail, and tornadoes all possible. Storms are also expected to develop in parts of the southwest this afternoon as monsoon season continues, but some more organized heavy thunderstorms will build this afternoon as a storm pushes to the west from coastal South Carolina and Georgia through parts of Florida. As this feature continues westward this week, AccuWeather hurricane experts currently give this area a low chance for tropical development through Friday. In Billings, Montana, some sun gives way to an afternoon thunderstorm today that may be gusty with hail, high 79. For Philadelphia, expect sunshine, fairly low humidity, and a rather nice day, high 84. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. A federal judge has sentenced the former Louisville, Kentucky police officer for shots fired back in 2020 for a raid on the apartment of Breonna Taylor. Following court proceedings, Correspondent Lisa Dwyer.
A former Kentucky police officer has been sentenced to nearly 3 years in prison for using excessive force during the deadly Breonna Taylor raid 5 years ago. The Justice Department had recommended no prison time for Brett Hankinson. Hankinson, who fired 10 shots during the raid but did not actually hit anyone, was the only officer on the scene charged in the black woman's death in 2020. He is the first person sentenced to prison in a case that spawned weeks of street protests over police brutality. The Bureau of Prisons will now determine where and when Hankinson starts his sentence. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Trump administration releases hundreds of thousands of documents tied to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The release of more than 230,000 documents related to the 1968 assassination of civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. fulfills a promise that President Trump made shortly after taking office for his second term. He also promised to release docs tied to the JFK and RFK assassinations.
People are waiting for this for years, for decades.
The documents include details about the FBI's investigation into King's killing and internal memos about the case. It also reveals details about the pursuit of James Earl Ray, who ultimately was convicted of killing King. A 1977 court order had kept the King files sealed, and his children opposed their release. They want the files published in a historical context opposed to a file dump. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. Postal Inspection Service says they're investigating a fiery crash at a San Jose, California post office over the weekend as potentially an intentional act. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports NBC News identified the suspect as Richard Tillman, the brother of late former NFL star turned soldier Pat Tillman.
Authorities say an arrest has been made after a car crashed into a San Jose post office and caught on fire, causing the building to go up in flames. A joint statement from the San Jose Police and Fire Departments says the incident occurred early Sunday morning in a strip mall south of downtown. It took about 50 firefighters an hour and a half to knock down the flames. Photos posted online by the fire department show a charred vehicle inside the heavily damaged building. No injuries have been reported. Federal postal inspectors are leading the investigation. I'm Mike Hempen.
Corporate earnings season. Results better than expected when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Thanks for listening. This is America in the Morning. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger has a check of Tuesday business.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for stocks yesterday, but that S&P 500 index is going to open this morning for the first time above 6,300. The NASDAQ opens at a record high. All of this ahead of big tech earnings. We hear from Tesla tomorrow and Google parent Alphabet later this week.
Pretty quiet week from a data perspective. There aren't a lot of policy headlines hitting us, at least not expected to this week. All markets can really focus in on is this earnings season, and the earnings season's been pretty darn good. I think analysts really lowballed it coming in here. They thought that the macro economy would be in worse shape than we are right now, or at least they thought that some of those implications would hit us a little bit quicker than they have. I think they also really underestimated just how good corporate America is at protecting margins.
JP Morgan's Jack Manley on CNBC. Gold, copper, and silver rallied yesterday. Silver was up 2%. Southwest Airlines says tickets with seat assignments are going on sale 1 week from today. That hallmark open seating policy goes away January 27th of next year. That's when the airline starts boarding passengers by group, and there will be 8 boarding groups at Southwest. McDonald's snack wraps are lifting sales at the chain.
Clearly, the snack wrap is a big help for the whole story. It's driving 7% plus lift. $2.99 price point helps. These guys got away from value. They were one of the big pricers during COVID. The brand needs to stand for value. So I think they're going to have to get organized as a system, their franchisees and the company, around some national value like we've seen from Taco Bell. The odds of that happening are growing, partly because they saw that this national price point worked on the snack wrap.
Evercore's David Palmer on CNBC. Mickey D's snack wraps have turned out to be so popular. The Wall Street Journal first reported there was a brief lettuce shortage at some restaurants. Domino's, meantime, reported mixed quarterly results. They do now have stuffed crust pizza. The CEO's telling investors they're giving customers the best deal. Here's CNBC's Kate Rogers.
U.S. same-store sales came in much better than expected, up 3.4%, thanks in part to the introduction of its Parmesan stuffed crust pizza. I did have a chance to speak to Domino's CEO Russell Weiner. He reiterated that Domino's is doing well with value competition because they're discounting the main thing, which of course is the pizza. It's the thing that their customer actually wants. Everybody else right now is giving you a deal on something you don't want.
Starbucks pumpkin spice lattes will be out on Tuesday, August 26th. That's 5 weeks from today. That's according to USA Today. On today's watch list, we get more earnings. Coca-Cola, General Motors, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman, Sherwin-Williams, and Capital One, to name a few.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, Harvard attempts to recoup lost government funding after these messages. The Department of Justice and Harvard University met in federal court Monday. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on a hearing where Harvard is seeking the restoration of billions of dollars in federal funding.
Harvard's got to behave themselves. Harvard is treating our country with great disrespect.
The school's asking a judge to reverse a series of Trump administration federal funding freezes, arguing their retaliation for Harvard rejecting administration demands over fighting anti-Semitism. A government lawyer says the administration has the power to cancel research grants if an institution violates presidential directives. The judge pushed back, saying the government's offered no documentation to show the school has or has not taken enough steps to fight anti-Semitism. She says the consequences of that in terms of constitutional law are staggering. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
An appeals court is ordering a new trial for the man convicted in the 1979 Eaton Pates case. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
6-year-old Eitan Pates was among the first missing children pictured on milk cartons. Disappearing in 1979, his body was never found. It took police decades to arrest Pedro Hernandez for the murder. Monday, an appeals court overturned the 2017 conviction because of an issue involving how the trial judge handled a jury note. His first trial ended in deadlock in 2015. Hernandez was a teenager working at a Soho convenience store when Eitan, walking alone from home to his school bus stop, vanished. He later confessed to choking the 6-year-old, but his lawyers maintain it was a false confession and he was mentally ill. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The U.S. border czar is fed up with sanctuary cities. I'm Clayton Neville.
Russia launched one of its biggest air attacks on Kyiv in months. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Donald Trump is threatening to hold up a stadium deal for Washington's football team if it doesn't restore its old name. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has called a special session to redraw the state's congressional map in a move encouraged by President Trump. I'm Jennifer King.
A massive cyber attack is underway against SharePoint servers. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, has died. I'm Ed Donahue.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. We're watching on radar the potential for some severe weather developing. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Today's risk for severe thunderstorms will focus on some of the very same parts of the northern tier of the nation that were on alert for powerful storms Monday afternoon and into the night. The trigger mechanism for today's storms will be a cold front diving southward out of Canada, and as it reaches the warm to hot and rather humid air in place from central Montana through much of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with the western upper peninsula of Michigan, AccuWeather severe weather experts say that thunderstorms will develop in the afternoon and continue into the night, any of which may bring hail, damaging wind gusts of at least 60 to 70 miles per hour, and the risk for tornadoes. To the south and east of there, the chance for an afternoon thunderstorm will extend from portions of the Ohio Valley across much of the southeast. However, storms should be the heaviest near the southeast coast from South Carolina to Florida, and there may be thunderstorms around Florida all day as the storm starts to become generally better organized in that area. This marks the start of the latest wet pattern for that region, with rounds of downpours shifting westward toward southern Louisiana and parts of southeast Texas through Friday that will lead to localized flash flooding, along with rough surf, perhaps even some tropical development. Outside of those zones, monsoon thunderstorms will redevelop this afternoon, especially from southeastern Arizona into New Mexico and Colorado, where there may be areas of flash flooding. The Northeast has a great day in store with sunshine and low humidity under high pressure, and those nicer conditions spread southward into more of the mid-Atlantic as well. However, it's going to be quite hot in parts of the South and Midwest, with no shortage of 90s and 100s later today, and enough humidity to take AccuWeather real field temperatures over 110 degrees from Houston to St. Louis and into southern Georgia. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The shooting of a U.S. Border Patrol agent in a New York City park over the weekend in an apparent robbery attempt is prompting a shift in priority for the Trump administration. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports both the border czar and the head of Homeland Security are demanding more from cities like New York, where large numbers of illegal immigrants reside.
U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan says sanctuary cities are now the Trump administration's top priority.
The sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals.
Homan is promising to, quote, flood the zone.
New York City, how many times do you want to see NYPD attacked by illegal alien criminals in the city? Now a federal officer. How many citizens of this city have been attacked by illegal aliens in this city? You see the polls. Everybody agrees we should be arresting public safety threat illegal aliens, but you got a city council here that locked this out of Rikers Island.
Homan directing frustration at city leaders and promising more agents in New York City to look for illegal immigrants. This just days after a U.S. Border Patrol agent was shot in the face while at a park under the George Washington Bridge.
Our officer was off duty on Saturday evening when him and his friend were attacked. They were attacked by two individuals that were set on robbing them, and thankfully he had his service weapon with him and was able to defend himself and his friend and injured one of those individuals that was trying to do them harm.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City.
It's not believed the Border Patrol agent was targeted because of his job, but the suspect was arrested shortly after the encounter.
How many more lives will it take? How many more people have to be hurt and victimized before we have public safety be a number one priority in some of our largest cities?
Authorities announcing this week that a second suspect, believed to be an accomplice in the shooting, was also taken into custody. I'm Clayton Neville.
Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, the first in over 7 weeks, were announced last night by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, scheduled for Wednesday to be held in Turkey. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the move comes amid the backdrop of Russia launching sustained attacks on key Ukrainian cities in recent weeks, and as Kyiv's allies met to discuss more military aid.
What happens if Russia doesn't end its war with Ukraine in 50 days?
Well, in 50 days, as the president clearly laid out, if there is not a ceasefire agreement or a peace deal within that time frame, if Russia refuses to legitimately agree to a ceasefire, then they will face very steep tariffs and they will also face secondary sanctions. So countries that are purchasing oil from Russia will be sanctioned as well, and of course that will do deep damage to Russia's economy.
Hours before Ukraine's allies met to discuss more military support, Russia launched one of its biggest air attacks on Kyiv in months.
Germany will contribute to providing the 5 urgently needed Patriot systems as quickly as possible.
The hours-long drone and missile assault underlined Ukraine's need for more aid.
We have to stop this war machine by joining forces to support Ukraine.
German Defense Chief Boris Pistorius helped chair a meeting to discuss President Trump's plans for NATO allies to get Ukraine more weapons.
Air defense, especially Patriot and PAC-3 missiles, along with ammunition, are crucially important to us.
New Ukrainian Defense Minister Denis Shimal, days after NATO's top commander said preparations have started for the weapons transfers, though the timeline for the systems arriving is unclear.
I request the U.S. to make these weapons available for purchase and our European partners to extend all the needed financing for their procurement. My second request is for financial support. Ukraine needs $6 billion to close this year's procurement gap.
Meantime, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv has proposed more peace talks this week. Moscow says it's open to another round, but no date is set. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The United States is doubling down on support for Syria's government, and at the same time, U.S. Syria envoy Tom Barak has criticized Israel's recent intervention in Syrian territory, calling it poorly timed and saying it complicates efforts to stabilize the region. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the White House is showing concern, saying President Trump was caught off guard by Israeli military action in Syria.
The current government of Syria, in my opinion, has conducted themselves as best they can as a nascent government with very few resources to address the multiplicity of issues that arise in trying to bring a diverse society together.
Tom Barrack, who's ambassador to Turkey and special envoy to Syria, tells the AP Israel's intervention in the latest round of conflict in Syria had further complicated matters, but he's clear the US will continue to support the new government in Damascus.
I think the current government is capable, is competent, is reliable, has done what they've said, has made no mistakes in this interim. What happened in the last few days is so complicated. Israel's intervention in the midst of this creates another very confusing chapter. But the answer is we have to stop the senseless killing. We have to start the dialogue. To me, there is no plan B.
Barrack's comments come after more than a week of clashes in the southern Syria province between Druze militias and local Sunni Muslim Bedouin tribes, and an aerial attack by Israel on Syrian government installations. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
When we return, Minnesota Democrat resigns, Texas Republicans map out new districts, and a vote by Miami's city council shot down. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. A new stadium deal for the NFL's Washington Commanders in D.C. could face resistance from the White House. Correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh reports.
President Donald Trump is threatening to hold up a stadium deal for Washington's football team if it doesn't restore its old name. Trump said on his social media site that the Washington Commanders should revert to the Redskins and the Cleveland Guardians should return to the Indians.
I think you've seen the president gets involved in a lot of things that most presidents have not. He's a non-traditional president. He likes to see results on behalf of the American people. And if you actually poll this issue with sports fans across the country and even in this city, people actually do support the president's position on this and the name change.
Later in the day, he threatened the NFL team's stadium deal.
The president was serious, and it's part of the art of the deal, part of his negotiating skills. As you know, sports is one of the many passions of this president, and he wants to see the name of that team changed.
The Commanders and Guardians changed their name in 2022 after years of debate over logos and names considered offensive. Both teams have stated they have no plans to change them back. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Change is in the air in the political landscape in Minnesota after a state senator was found guilty of burglary. Nicole Mitchell, a Democrat, was convicted of breaking into her stepmother's home in April. The jurors deliberated for just over 3 hours following 4 days of testimony. Mitchell announced she will resign her seat in the Minnesota State House next month. Her resignation leaves the Minnesota Senate politically tied at 33-33. At least until a special election is held. If Republicans prevail in that contest, it would shift the balance of power in the chamber since Democrats have just a one-seat majority right now. America in the Morning continues. Texas Republicans are preparing to redraw the state's congressional districts ahead of the 2026 House elections, with the blessing of President Trump, leading to growing concerns by Democrats. Jennifer King has the story.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has called a special session to redraw the state's congressional map in a move encouraged by President Trump. The idea is to help the GOP retain control of the U.S. House during next year's midterm elections. Adam Kincaid, the executive director of the National Republican Redistricting Trust, says smart map drawing can yield pickup opportunities while not putting our incumbents in jeopardy. Republican gains have been steady in the heavily Hispanic Rio Grande Valley, where Democrat Vicente Gonzalez won his last congressional race by just over 5,000 votes. His district is a tempting target, but Gonzalez says he's not worried and suggests that carving up the current districts could backfire. His party is recruiting challengers among veterans and law enforcement to try and flip the seats in the redrawn districts that would absorb the Democratic voters he'd lose. The GOP is also expected to try and scatter Democratic voters in the Houston, Dallas, and Austin areas with the idea of picking up 5 additional House seats. I'm Jennifer King.
A move by Miami, Florida commissioners to delay the city's elections until next year has been rejected by a judge following a lawsuit brought by one of the mayoral candidates. Commissioners had approved the controversial motion to move this year's election to November 2026 with a 3-2 vote last month, but a judge called that ordinance unlawful. Miami city leaders wanted to hold elections on even years and align them with presidential or gubernatorial races, along with imposing lifetime term limits. In her ruling, the judge said the ordinance violated the city charter and said the election date change would have to be approved by voters. A serious issue for Microsoft. If your server runs Microsoft SharePoint, you could be vulnerable to a massive attack that has Homeland Security and the FBI monitoring the situation. Correspondent Chuck Palm sorts out the details.
A massive cyber attack is underway, hitting Microsoft SharePoint servers in about 100 organizations worldwide, from government agencies to energy firms and universities. The Washington Post even commented that tens of thousands of servers are still currently at risk. Microsoft has released emergency patches for SharePoint 2019 and their subscription edition, but earlier 2016 versions are still exposed. The open access to SharePoint with a common vulnerability score of a whopping 9.8 out of 10 is allowing hackers to steal cryptographic keys and planting programs for persistent remote access even after patches are applied. Since SharePoint is likely tied to Outlook, Teams, and OneDrive, a breach like this can spread like wildfire throughout your organization. Best practices is to enable anti-malware scanning interfaces and deploy Defender AV, or take servers offline altogether until after the hot fixes have been applied. For up-to-date tech news, follow me on X @ChuckPalm.
Sports Tuesday edition with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
A full slate of baseball on Monday, 11 straight wins now for the Brewers. They shut out the Mariners 6-0 behind Brandon Woodruff and company, a 5-hitter. Milwaukee broke through for 4 runs in the 6th off George Kirby, who had held the Crew hitless through 5 1/3. So the Brewers break the tie with Chicago and now lead the NL Central. Royals rolled over the Cubs 12-4. Salvador Perez homered twice.
No, it's long season, just try to make adjustments. Like you say, my first half was kind of a little slow, and I just keep working, talk to my hitting coach, talk to me. I can do my best every time I step out to that home plate.
Dodgers down the Twins 5-2. Starting pitcher Shohei Ohtani gave up a leadoff dinger to fellow All-Star Byron Buxton. Then Ohtani hit a go-ahead 2-run tater in the bottom of the first. Will Smith tacked on 2 solo shots for LA. Philly shaded the Red Sox 3-2 in 10 innings. The walk-off winning run coming home on a catcher's interference call. Pirates blanked the Tigers 3-0. Paul Skeens and the Skeeters with a 5-hitter. Blue Jays won their 11th consecutive game at home, 4-1 over the Yankees. Astros over the Diamondbacks 6-3. Bryce Matthews hit his first 2 big league homers, driving in 5. Mets came back to top the Angels 7-5. Rangers romped over the A's 7-2. Josh Young back in the bigs with a homer and 3 runs scored. Braves clocked the Giants 9-5. Rookie Drake Baldwin with 3 hits and 6 RBI. White Sox whacked the Rays 8-3. Nationals took an early 7-0 lead, then had to hold on to beat the Reds 10-8. Padres nipped the Marlins 2-1. Guardians tattooed the Orioles 10-5, and the Cardinals defeated the Rockies 6-2. That's Tuesday Sports.
The passing of a television icon. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. A television star from The Cosby Show died while vacationing with his family. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports on the death of Malcolm Jamal Warner at the age of 54.
Is that a decal? No. Have you been tagged by the Wildlife Society?
It's an earring, Dad. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, has died. Authorities in Costa Rica say Warner accidentally drowned. A current pulled him deeper into the ocean. Malcolm Jamal Warner played the only son on The Cosby Show.
I know.
You know what?
What you gonna say?
and it's under control. So, no problem.
Warner has appeared in TV and movies over the years and directed. He's a musician, winning a Grammy. Warner told the AP in 2015 he got great advice from his mom on life after the Cosby Show.
They have dry spells. It's cyclical. So you want to make sure that you have diversified yourself enough so you're not making desperate career choices during those dry spells.
Warner also said the sexual assault allegations against Bill Cosby tainted the show's legacy.
No matter what we've had, in terms of the things that continue to perpetuate the negative stereotype of people of color, we've always had the Cosby Show to hold up against that. And the fact that we no longer have that, that's the thing that saddens me the most, because in a few generations, the Huxtables will have been just a fairy tale.
Malcolm Jamal Warner was 54. I'm Ed Donahue.
Singer-songwriter Kelly Clarkson is candidly sharing her thoughts on dating, saying it's not something she plans on resuming anytime soon. Here's America in the Morning's Kevin Carr.
On Sunday night at her Las Vegas residency, Kelly Clarkson responded to the question about her dating life with refreshing honesty. TikTok user Amanda Grimes, 563, captured the moment with her phone.
Dating can be very difficult, which is why I don't.
The 43-year-old singer filed for divorce from talent manager Brandon Blackstock 5 years ago, and the divorce was finalized in 2022. Together, they share an 11-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Clarkson often speaks about her kids in interviews, and she has been honest about putting them before her dating life, as she explained in May on the Today Show.
I will say I'm not looking, and I'm not looking. I'm very busy, and I think, get this as a mom, I've got to focus right now, so it's like there's a lot of work. Plus, my kid's schedule, I feel like it's busy. By the way,
Clarkson appeared on the music scene as the first winner of American Idol back in 2002. 2 years after filing for divorce, during an Instagram Live event, she addressed the dating subject with a similar approach.
Look, I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, 3 rabbits, a hamster, multiple jobs. There's a lot going on.
With a talk show, a recording career, and now a Las Vegas residency at Caesars Palace that runs through November, Clarkson has her hands full. And being in the public spotlight doesn't help things at all, she explained at her show on Sunday.
It's hard anyway, At a spotlight, it's like, this is just a dumpster fire.
I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.